All right, it is 10:30. I'll give folks another minute or so to find the calendar link and hop in, and then we'll get going with Justin's session for our first breakout. Thanks, everybody. Cool. Okay. Like I said, thanks for coming to our first breakout session of our MIOER Leadership Summit. This is LibreTexts, Beyond Textbooks to OER Assessment, Long-Form Writing, Supplemental Materials, and Interactives. I'm Ian Matthews. I'm the instructional designer at GRCC and the co-chair of the MIOER Professional Development Committee. Our presenter is Justin Shorb. Justin's a former professor of chemistry at Hope College, and he is currently the director of curriculum innovation and development at LibreTexts. So I'll turn it over to Justin, and I'll be in the chat.
Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody who's joined. I do enjoy having conversation. So if at any point you wanted to interrupt, feel free to do so. Be aware we are recording this. And if you'd like to ask me something after the recording ends, then feel free to wait for that as well. I do have slide numbers in the bottom right corner. So if at one point you want to make a note and then ask about that later, feel free to do that as well. So thank you for coming. And I'm going to give a quick little introduction, kind of a little background. I did do research in chemistry, education research, and I've worked across many different institutions from tribal colleges to R1 research institutions, and kind of moved into LibreTexts in the past 2 years, although I've worked with them as a professor and a researcher for decades. In fact, my graduate work is published on LibreTexts as a textbook. So I've been working with them for a long time, came on board to do more faculty development work. So that's kind of my background. And as you guys know, you're in Michigan. I did work at Hope College for 6 years there in the chemistry department doing research in chemistry education. So one reason I'm really passionate about moving into faculty development and helping people to embrace OER is the fact that I really want to move away from that traditional publishing model of for-profit and exploitation of students, really. How can we make this an easy move for faculty to move into using textbooks online? Well, the textbook content isn't really a big problem. There are excellent ways to publish your own books, to find well-published OER books. But there are other content things that traditional publishers provide. Question banks, interactives that may link up to that textbook, ancillary materials, worksheets, sample quizzes, all of those sorts of things might be content. And there's areas across the OER world where that content can be built and shared. But they also often come with technology, homework systems that may exist or be bundled with your textbook, maybe some engagement software, clickers, things like that. They often will have some sort of accessibility that they'll take care of for the faculty members that they assume out of the box will work. I can tell you not every single for-profit homework system is accessible. Just to give you a little heads up in case you're not aware of that. It's not a requirement for them. It's a requirement for an institution to only purchase things that are accessible. Development, there are a lot of development that comes with using a for-profit publisher. You get a first edition, then you might get some new authors, some review, moving on to the second edition. That could be something that you like. Things are renovated and moved and modernized, or something that you hate when they come out with a new revision for no reason, but everyone has to switch to it because the homework system only comes with the new edition. It doesn't come with the old edition. And then maybe the chapter numbers are going to change on you. Which could be a big issue if you have all of your curriculum set and your syllabus is already set. And honestly, textbooks are not always peer reviewed in a way that you might think they would because they're from a publisher. So that development work that's going on isn't necessarily in line with what you want for your curriculum at all times. And as far as like training and support that comes from a traditional publisher, you're going to have a sales rep. There might be support. The support can vary a lot from place to place. And usually they won't support you if you want to customize things with materials that the publisher can't own or get any money off of. So if you wanted to use your own supplemental materials and you're not willing to donate them or publish them with that company, then it can be difficult. And they often don't really care about that too much. So with that, this is the model that we want to overhaul. So we wanted to think about all of these different aspects of that for-profit model. And many people are unaware of the fact that LibreTexts, despite the fact that we're a pretty decently large name, we're the largest OER library in the world, um, we're only 4 people that work the whole system. So there's just Delmar, the founder, Josh, who is our COO, Jennifer Rogers, who is our librarian and the director of outreach and community development, and then myself. So we are the team at LibreTexts. So if you email us or ask a support question, one of the 4 of us are going to get that. We do have a few coders that work behind the scenes, but all in all, there's maybe a total of 7 full-time people that run everything. And notice there's no sales team. We don't have a sales team. So talking with people is really how we get the word out, and we let that speak for itself. It all did start off with exactly looking at that model I talked about with Delmar Larson at UC Davis. He decided to build the ChemWiki because he got sick of those new books coming out all the time, and he didn't like it. So he started off by replacing the book, and he just did all the homework some other way. That wiki still exists in LibreTexts as the chemistry library, but it didn't solve the problem of being able to move people away from this traditional publishing model and exploitation of students. So we had to come up with the other aspects, not just the content, but the technology, our development platform, and our trading platform needed to go there. And we wanted to do it all without any profit. We are completely a nonprofit, and actually we run very, very lean. So within the library, you probably know that we are a textbook library, but you might not know that we are an OER question bank with over 250,000 questions that any instructor can log in, get verified, and go look at and use that for anything you want. We have a whole entire library of interactives, dozens of thousands of interactive materials that we have that you can couple with your textbooks, either as homework type engagement, graded things, or just supplemental materials, along with a bunch of ancillary materials, and we're ramping that up quite a bit. Our technology platform is very diverse, and we'll go through a little bit of all these things. We're platform agnostic assessment. So if you're familiar with WebWork or MyOpenMath or iMath AS or H5P, all of those things exist underneath our homework system, which is called Adapt. We just have a umbrella that goes over it and then makes all these technologies work nicely with your LMS. So you don't need to think about how all that works. But if you have an existing library, we'll move it in. We do have a system for writing analytics, which I'll talk about a little bit. And of course, we have massive amounts of data. We do work with education researchers as well. So we kind of like in the back end work with that technology. For those of you who are curious, how do you do this? We are grant funded and institution sponsored. So all these works have been instructor driven. So we don't make things because we think people should use them. People come to us with innovative technology they want in their classroom, and they want a place to host it so that it can be widely used and disseminated. So we are not really a top-down sort of thing. We are a groundwork of faculty who care a lot and want a platform that's going to make education better for everybody. And then I lead up the LibreTexts Academy, which is our professional development, faculty development training system. We do have a LibreNet campus consortium, which many schools are a part of. I think we're up to 250, 300 schools at this point that are part of our consortium. And then we do tons of workshops and things like that along the way. So really, we call this the LibreVerse at this point. At this point, this is not just a library of textbooks. This is a whole universe of systems that are meant to get rid of that for-profit model for your students. So I mentioned if you do click on that launchpad, that takes you to the LibreVerse. And the LibreVerse is all 16 of our libraries and all of those platforms across the top. That is our homework system, our training system, our community forum, our platforms for engagement with H5P and Jupyter notebooks for computer science, all of that. And if you are somebody who hasn't worked with LibreTexts for quite a long time, you may only think of us as textbooks. So a lot of what today is going to be is not that much into textbooks, but I will cover a little bit. Sorry. And I'll kind of like walk through the different aspects that you're aware of what things are. And at the end, I can go do some show and tell of some platforms that you're just curious about or you want to know more about. Um, that's kind of the plan. I'm hoping to leave at least 15 minutes or so at the end for questions and show and tell. So this launchpad really started in 2023. And I'm just going to give a quick timeline of things that have grown fast in the last 3 years. So we do have AI co-authoring tools that we launched in February of last year. We don't have authoring by AI. That is not something that we do, but we do have tools that will help you with the tedious work of writing a summary for your page, for tagging your page to make an automatic index. All of our books have indices. So you can say, I want to know where synthetic alcohols are mentioned in this book. Well, down here, you can go to the index and then those tags will take you to it. But coming up with all those tags is hard. So we do have that generating tags. And then we do also have a way of going through and doing all of your alt text for all of your images with a quick pass. Of course, those are editable, but getting something in there is a time sensitive thing. Improvement can come when you have the time to do it. So that's just an example of going through. You can either do the summaries, tags, alt text, or do all of them at the same time, and it'll take care of it. Usually takes about maybe a minute to do a whole book, which is great. We did launch this academy, so you may not know that we had all these professional development services. The LibreTexts Academy launched last year, and we've had organic question building cohorts. We've had NSF grant publication and hosting. So an NSF grant came through. They needed to post. They needed a place to showcase and disseminate their work. So we've worked with them as well, and some training of their faculty to work there. And we've done some launches of 3-year programs for getting to zero textbook cost on campuses across the country. So that those are coming up with plans to help faculty and administrators to get their classes to zero textbook cost over the course of a period. And we do have our first public health book that's been published by working with me in a cohort of publishing. So that's working as well in the last year. We also have renovated our platform to not just be textbook tied. So we now allow for repositories of materials that aren't tied to a textbook. So if you wanted to publish a bunch of images or you wanted to publish a bunch of audio files, something that is a useful repository for you, we actually have here our LibreNet marketing kit. So that's where we keep all of our logos and branding and flyers so that anybody who wants to advertise LibreTexts or some talk on their campus can go there and find all our materials. So we use our materials in the same way that you would use them for a textbook. And then that assets could be tied to a textbook. So here we do have a textbook that has these assets, and then you see this little graduation cap there. That means that those assets are only available to logged in and verified instructors. So some things could be public, or you could have things like answer keys that are only available for verified instructors. Those 4 people that you saw on that first slide there with my team, they verify by hand every single instructor account. So when you ask to be verified, we go look you up, find you, check your email address, and make sure that every instructor is a verified person. So you can be safe to post things in that way there. Also, in May of last year, we've completely overhauled our project management system, so that will help you walk through the publication process. A lot of people have really enjoyed finding a single place to work on all of their projects, regardless if it's a book or materials or collaboration with the faculty. We also launched the Forge. This is one I'll talk about in more specific detail later. The Forge is a long form writing assignment. Well, writing, it could do slideshows or spreadsheets or drawing programs, but it is primarily used right now for long form writing. So that would be if you wanted to monitor a student as they wrote, how much they wrote, whether they were copying and pasting, how they were engaging with things. So it allows you to have pedagogy that focuses on the process as opposed to the final product. And it enables open pedagogy in much more useful ways because it can be more about a collaborative work with you and your students and seeing how things are working throughout a process, and can feed straight into our homework system as well as into our library. If you have ever been concerned about books, we do have a print service as well at LibreTexts. So if you need to have print copies, we have that. We use printing at cost, again, no profit. So I think around a 200, 300 page book usually runs around $12 or so, depending on if you want black and white or color. So that's shipped to you. Print on demand. So it takes a couple days. We don't have a big warehouse anywhere. and printed here in California, meaning here in the United States. Our print shop's in California. And then this is also where you'd buy any of the codes to be able to use. Our textbooks are completely free. If you're a LibreNet member, you can bundle things together, but the cost for any of our interactives, any of our student data concerning platforms. So that would be our homework systems, that Forge that I mentioned where students do work, or our Jupyter notebooks, which are coding notebooks for interacting with students writing code or data science. Those are all $15 for 6 months, a subscription model. So it doesn't matter if your students are taking 3 classes, 5 classes, or just 1 class. We only take their student data once, so we only charge them once. So if your campus wanted to move to low textbook cost, you could remove all of their homework costs from a whole entire semester with a single $15 if you're part of our consortium, otherwise $15 for whichever applications that you wanted to use. Again, we're not making a profit. That just is to maintain the servers that maintain the student data at FERPA levels. And we have also launched analytics. So if you've been curious about how our analytics work, we have analytics for all of our textbooks. They're rolling out because it takes a lot of work to get the data up there. So some textbooks have it right now, some don't. And we're still in the process of backlog and getting those all up to date. So you can watch textbook usage over time and see what parts of the world are looking at it as well. So I'm going to just jump forward because all of that happened last year. So we have been growing at an extremely rapid pace because we have gotten to the point where we want to be as broad scale adopted as possible. We want to save students money everywhere, no matter what the hurdle your faculty might have in moving away from a traditional publisher model. And our 2026 goals are basically to make this very, very feasible by integrating things as much as possible. So one thing we're going to be doing is moving all of our Jupyter Notebook assignments into Adapt so that you can assign them in the same homework system that you could assign everything else. We've already just last week moved our Forge assignments into Adapt. So that way students still only need to go to one place to have a gradebook, to have all of their exercises there. It's still a separate platform, but it operates with the same gradebook and the same linking to your LMS. And we're placing a larger emphasis on community. We have not actually launched formally, but we have soft launched a forum for people to collaborate, to discuss all these tools, how you use them in your class, to ask people about what's happening, and to announce new textbooks that are being published in our, and then working with communities of practice as well, called the LibreTexts Connections, and that's been working there as well. So our goal is really to tie everything together in a community structure and help the faculty to get there. A lot of this has been facilitated through grants, I said before, but we are also, just in case you're unknown, as of this month, or actually January, we are the online OER library for every single community college in California. We were awarded a $5 million grant in order to build the infrastructure and to expand it so that every college in California can have a systematic library that looks the same everywhere and be able to host all their materials in a single, nice to use way. So that was 116 campuses that came into the LibreNet in the past year or past month. And one of the reasons for that, which a lot of you are very aware you need to be concerned by, is this Department of Justice ruling of accessibility for web-based materials. This needs to happen, and we're a very strong candidate for how to help faculty to make that happen. We are accessible by design because, unlike for-profit institutions, we were built by federal and state grants. Federal and state grants require things to be accessible. They won't give you money to build something that's not accessible. So we don't need to go backwards and figure out how to make things accessible because we were designed to be that way. Not that every faculty member did all of the work to make their alt text already, but we have the tools to help them to get things up and done in the best way possible. So that's in 2026. Obviously, we're going to be working on that. More work beyond the classroom. So advanced support for those analytics, accessibility reviews, and administration from our stakeholders. We focused a lot on faculty and their classrooms for the last 14 years, and we realized that adoption across a campus requires tools for instructional designers, for faculty, for provost offices to be able to coordinate things and to get the type of data that they need to justify the tools that we have for their campus wide. Um, and of course, that requires a lot of professional development. So we're launching that as well in a much more serious way. All of that is the history of the things we've been doing in the last 14 months. So it should be surprising. It surprises me every time I talk about it. Uh, but it's important to realize that if you did think that we are a publishing platform, yes, we are. If you thought we are a library, yes, we are. But we're also a homework system, an interactive system, a collaboration system, and a dissemination network for software and as well as for content. So I'm going to take a quick breather and check the chat. So if you had any questions about what I just mentioned, I'm going to go basically through a lot of these things here and highlight what they are and how they work at a very high level. So if you're just curious to see a little bit more, we'll get to that. But if you had any questions about what I just said, please feel free to drop them in the chat. And I honestly just needed to take a drink of water. Uh, great. So let's go ahead and keep going. I did want to point out real quick that some things are only available to verified faculty. So some of the things I want to show you, you can't just go to LibreTexts and find. You must have an account with us and it must be verified. I do have a couple slides at the end if we want to walk through and make sure everyone get an account. It's free. We usually verify you within 24 hours. So it's not going to take much time. But like you can see, some of those tools don't show up on the top there. That's on just our public version of our website. The logged in users have more things that are only available to faculty. So you will know if you are an account that is verified is if your name just has your name and your email in the upper right-hand corner, or it will have green verified instructor on the right-hand side of your name. That will let you know your account has been verified. And if you're not verified, you'll have this big banner at the top of that page. So if you click on the rocket ship anywhere, you'll get to this page, and then it'll have a big orange banner that says your account has not been verified with a link to start that verification process. Like I said, a lot of our stuff is for faculty only, so you can't get to those. So let's start off with one thing that you all know we are, which is a library. We actually are 16 libraries, and we have 13 libraries that are in English. So we have a bunch of English libraries that are separated by areas. If you happen to be curious, we do have foreign language libraries. So I'm being very careful about my wording there. For instance, our Spanish library is not for teaching Spanish. It is not for your Spanish department that teaches Spanish. That is in our humanities library. The Spanish library is a library of translated books from all the other libraries into Spanish. So it is a library for Spanish. And then our global library is for libraries of other foreign languages that aren't big enough to have their own library yet. And then we also do have a Ukrainian library that we did to support those that need more access to quality teaching materials there. So those three libraries are not in English. They are specifically translation libraries. And actually 2026, translations are the one thing that is difficult to get funding from the federal government or the state government. So our drive for 2026 is to get donations to support translation efforts. So if you happen to be passionate about that area, feel free. Otherwise, our ESL and our foreign language acquisition courses are all in the humanities library. And I have a picture there of our Espanol library on the left. You can see Biología, Química. Those are all just those Spanish versions of our other libraries. So we are working on that as well. Otherwise, the English libraries are broken down into three areas. There are bookshelves. Bookshelves are what you think of as a library. If you went to your bookstore and you were to look for a book to teach your class, that book would be similar to one that you'd find in our bookshelves. They're generic books that could be used across the campus or across your discipline, no matter what school you're at. They're not specific to anything at all. Campus bookshelves, however, are where faculty have built their own customized book, taking things from elsewhere in LibreTexts, maybe taking things from the bookshelves or from our learning objects area and creating something maybe with their own materials that is designed to match their syllabus for their students. Any campus can have 5 of those for free across our library. So if your faculty wants to make a customized book, great, do it. It's free. The cutoff there, though, is 5. Once your campus gets beyond 5 books, then that's when you need to become a LibreTexts, a LibreNet consortium campus, which is currently $2,500 a year. So a lot of libraries look at that and go, how can you do that for so cheap? And that's because, again, this just helps us to maintain the servers and the support level that's necessary to have these customized books and these remixes. But you can always have faculty encouraged to do that. And of course, you can use our bookshelves for free. And if you have a book out there that your faculty want to publish that is a generic book that could be used by anybody, then they can still publish with us for free into the bookshelves. So it's only the customized ones that are only used by one person at one school that are considered campus bookshelves books. And then on the third thing there, the learning objects are what you'd consider anything that could be used with any book. So a lab experiment, a learning module, a case study, anything that could be used for maybe Gen Chem 1 or Gen Chem 2 or for analytical. So anything that kind of is a standalone or an interactive, those will show up in learning objects. And then that would be the power of remixing your own custom book, because you could use whatever pages you wanted from the book you like and some case studies from the learning objects or interactives from the learning objects and keep them all in one spot to make things easier for your students. I did mention the bookshelf for the languages. That's inside of the humanities library. So if you were looking to teach Arabic or American Sign Language or English as a second language even, those books are all in the humanities library inside of the bookshelf, and inside of the bookshelf in the languages bookshelf. And I should also mention, all this has been completely free, not even being able to sign, no need to sign in at all. But if you are signed in, you'll see a black bar at the top. If you're a verified instructor, if you're not verified or your students, then you'll see a blue bar at the top. If you are signed in, you'll have access to other areas. You won't necessarily see them when you log in, but just be aware that there are other libraries of books in progress that are happening. So your books that you're working on that are not published, not available yet, those will actually be in the workbench, which is a hidden area that only verified instructors can get to. And indeed, only verified instructors that are working on your book with your permission can see your books. Great. Which leads me into the way that we have expanded for our publication process, which is that we have a commons and a conductor. We like to say these are two sides of the same coin. I call them front of house and back of house. So everything is made in the kitchen in the conductor, but everything is presented to the public in the commons. It's our catalog of all of our books, our resources, our ancillary materials. Our searching for everything is on the commons. But if you wanted to update your book, you'd do that through the conductor. If you wanted to work on your book, you'd do that through the conductor. If you wanted to add ancillary materials to your book or your mini repository, that would be done through the conductor. And the conductor is only accessible by verified instructor accounts. All right. I just wanted to show you what the commons look like. This is our catalog. You can see the books from all of our libraries at the same time and search for them. You can filter them by whether you're searching for books, for assets, for mini repositories. You can search for projects. So if you want to see what people are working on, maybe they're not published yet, but if somebody has a public project that are looking for volunteers to come join them, you can find them there. And then we have a bunch of filters. You could, for instance, search for a book that has assets that are verified instructor only or has public assets. And you could look for different licenses, anything that you wanted to go through that. For instance, or assets, you can even look for file type. So if you wanted to find PowerPoint slides, you could look for PowerPoints in our assets. And then in the mini repositories, it's just started, like I said, 6 months ago or so. I think we currently have 7 mini repositories, but they're growing every month. We keep getting more, and you can see the LibreNet member marketing materials is the one that we manage. But we have a bunch of new ones. We are started as a bunch of chemists, so chemists tend to use things first. So that's why 2 out of 5 of those are chemistry ones. I am not going to go into a lot of detail, but I did want to point out that we do keep track of licensing for everybody. So if you do use a remix and remix a bunch of stuff from everybody else, we will keep track of all of your licensing for you. As far as I know, we are the only publisher that allows you to use OER, and we'll keep track of licensing on a paragraph by paragraph basis. So if you use just one paragraph from somebody else, there's ways to do that and bring it into your book where we will just keep track of that licensing and all of your linking for you. So that's all kept track of and then automatically done for you in your book. I'm not gonna talk too much more about that. And we did already talk about the bookstore and when that launched. But if you wanted to see, we have our online courses, our books, and our merchandise store are all there. You can get black and white color books, hard copy, paperbacks. You can see here that this book has, I'm trying to see, how many? This is 153 pages, and the price for this book is $8, a little over $8. So it's a very low cost way to be able to do that. And we do have cool merchandise with our little mascot. That's our merch store. Um, I do have some activities that we can do, but I just wanted to point out that it's very easy if you are a LibreNet member campus to find books by your own institution. And we even have campus commons. So that commons that you saw, if you're a LibreNet member, then you get your very own branded one. So you could get a Hope College branded campus commons that lists all the books that are used on your campus or authored by your campus or divided by your departments. So you can showcase the OER that you're using. I'm not going to go through the exercise with you, but this is something that I frequently do when I do these workshops with faculty to teach them how to do these things. So if you're interested in that kind of workshop, let me know. We do a lot of those across the country. Great. And I did mention that campus consortium. So here's an example of what that looks like for Southwestern College. Lists all their books, little information there, as well as they'll have their own way to catalog and collect things into their own disciplines for their campus. I did mention if you wanted to become a LibreNet consortium member, we have a bunch of them. The entire state of California is our LibreNet members for the community colleges and the Cal State, and then also the UC system, most of them. All of the state of Illinois is now LibreNet members as well. Their consortium of research librarians adopted us, as well as the Florida virtual campus. So every virtual class in Florida also uses us for theirs. So we're getting state by state actually buy-in, which has been really great for people to be able to collaborate across institutions, especially for institutions where you may be the only person working in your field. It's much nicer to be able to connect through that. All right, so refocusing, that was our books, but I told you we are here to talk about a lot of things beyond those books. But I wanted to first give you an idea of how these things will go and tie into the books. They are considered ancillaries. Each of those books can have homework attached to them. Each of those books could have interactives that are from our interactives library or from all of our other areas. So what sorts of interactives do we have? What kind of assessment do we have that can be tied to each of those books? That's what that top part of the Launchpad and a lot of those services are there. We do have that adapt homework system I keep hinting at. And then we have the connections forum for interaction for faculty. And then we have our H5P studio where you can author, collect, find, or use H5P within your book or your homework. And then we have embedded data encoding for Jupyter. And then we have that Forge. So those are really our most common ones. Our adapt homework system, we can do anything that you would normally do with an LMS, to be honest. We have over 300,000 questions already existing. You can search for them by books. If any OER book resources exist out there, then we'll bring them into our library for people to be able to use. For instance, we have the OpenStax books on our library, as well as the OpenStax homework that they had released for faculty as well. We have a good working relationship with them. We have different missions. We're more about remixing and helping faculty customize. They are more of a publisher model where you get a book that already comes packaged. And so different ways to approach the problem, but we both believe in lowering costs for students. We do have interactive learning trees. That's actually where the word adapt comes from, where you can make interactive problems where faculty will be given a question, or not faculty will give a question that's quite complicated. And instead of just giving a student a second try to do that question, they are given a strategy map that the faculty will write and saying, hey, to do this question, you actually need to be able to do all of these minor skills very well. Which of these minor skills do you need more help with? And then the student must choose one of those 4 branches in the tree and either get a text training, a video training, or just a sample problem. On the far right, you see those blue boxes. Blue boxes are extra homework questions. Then the student must successfully do that minor question in order to earn a chance to redo the first question. So these are what we call adaptive learning trees. They're very powerful, but they do take time for faculty to build, and our library is not as large of what the ones already exist. Plus, they kind of tie into your own pedagogy. But the interface to build them are build a question in Adapt, drag and drop them into a learning tree. It's a visual editor. You just drag and drop and say, I want them to do this, then this, then this. So over here on the right-hand side, this one, students must do 2 practice questions on a basic calculation for addition and subtraction before they get a chance to go do that significant figures question. So that's the Adapt one. We also do have, as I mentioned, H5P can be embedded in your homework. iMath AS, which is the same as MyOpenMath. So if you have an existing library on campus, just bring it in, and then you can use them all. And then web work as well, we support, along with our own in-house native things. So we work with a lot of people who I said want to do something great and make things cheaper for their students. We work with them to host that new software. So one of our newest ones is Discuss It. That is an audio recording and video recording threaded discussion assignment. So here's an example of that. You can give students things to look at and instructions to have a conversation. They can start threads either with video that is transcribed into whatever language you want, and they can reply to each other either with video or audio, and transcripts are automatically generated with Google in the background. The heaviest users of this and the people who did the heavy lifting of building it are actually Spanish language teachers, because a lot of community colleges, they're expected to have more asynchronous online courses, and it's hard to teach language asynchronously online. So tools like this become really important in order for faculty to engage with students and to watch them engage with each other by speaking that language. And they can have that transcript transcribed right into Spanish. So then you can just set that as well. And this gets graded all through Adapt. So that gives that. We do, because we're chemists, have great molecular structure drawing programs. If you are a chemist in this room, you may be familiar with MolView, which is a really great free tool for drawing molecules in 2D and looking at them in 3D. We work with the MolView people. They've donated their time and energy to build molecular structure homework assignments where people can draw structures and have them graded, or even take a picture of a drawing on their piece of paper, which will automatically get converted into a molecular structure, and then they can get drawn. So you can require people to do that. One thing Adapt does that we really like and we don't really talk about that much, you can turn on upload work. So students can have the option of uploading their work for every single problem that they do. The way that we've encouraged faculty to use that is to say, I will look at your homework question if you think that it was graded improperly, but you must show me the work in order for me to look at it. So in other words, I don't want to look at a piece of paper that you told me you did the work on. I want you to upload it at time of doing the problem. So the students have to think ahead and plan ahead as to whether they're going to be doing that. And I mentioned the long form writing from the Forge can go straight into here. If you do want to align your homework systems, your homework questions with frameworks for your course or for your discipline, or for some sort of educational framework that you're using for assessment in your curriculum, we do have materials to help you align your courses for those benchmarks and assessing those. For Jupyter, if you're not familiar, it's one of those things where if you know it, you definitely know it. Otherwise, if you don't know it, you probably don't need to know it. It's for doing coding, and it's an online notebook for writing code and running code, and then that way you can share it with your professor. So data scientists use it a lot. Some faculty in statistics will also do it. Of course, they can overlap quite a bit with data science. And then, of course, computer science will do it a lot. But not just is it a notebook where you can use it there, we embed that in our textbooks as well. So you can have a textbook. This is a textbook page in our library that has chunks of editable code. So a student can be given example code to run while they're learning about things. So this is a statistics book that is teaching box plots, histograms, and a stem and leaf plot there at the bottom. So a student would read something about it, and then they can run that code to do a histogram, and then the image will show up only once they run the code. Then they can modify, let's say, the breaks in the number of histogram boxes, and then they can rerun that code, and they can explore and be engaged with that code, as opposed to just saying, here's a histogram, here's another histogram. So it forces students to engage with the material. We do have an H5P library. You can author them, you can import them. I will point out that by far and large, do not use H5P for any high stakes graded homework, because it is not secure. The answer to the H5P question is on the website itself. So a student who knows how to look at the code of a website can easily find the correct answer. Maybe not easy for all of them, but for definitely some of the ones that are accessible. And it's very difficult sometimes to make H5P questions accessible. Most of the questions that are in H5P that are accessible, you could do with some other platform. Like, yes, you can write a multiple choice question in H5P. Why would you? You could do it somewhere else that is actually secure, because The multiple choice question has the answer on the student side, but there are still good reasons to utilize it. And you can do it if you did embed in an H5P question in Adapt. We have automatic accessibility features. So if you give Adapt a list of students who must be provided an accessible set of homework, then instead of being given the H5P question, you can have it automatically give them a alternative question that you've selected from the database that is accessible. So we have that automatically set up as long as you tell Adapt which students are which, and as long as you make sure you give alternatives for all inaccessible ones. And we do have a sheet on LibreTexts as well that goes through and shows all of our which H5Ps are accessible. And I did mention we do a lot about accessibility. This is our brand new connections forum. If you do go to the connections forum and you are a verified instructor, you have access to go there. Otherwise, you can still go there and look at it for free. You just can't comment or ask questions until you're verified. But we do have a bunch of accessibility questions tagged with accessibility that you can go and look at our answers or ask your own about a page in our books or something else. We don't really need you to use LibreTexts to care about your students. So if you want to ask questions about other things, we'll do our best. Of course, we're most knowledgeable about what we do. I did mention the Forge, and the Forge is that long form writing assignment. So it looks like Google Docs in many ways. Students write their questions out. It's for long form. When I say long form, what I mean is long duration of time. So if an assignment that will have multiple drafts along the semester or feedback that they're being given, that's usually where this is going to be the most important, because it really helps you to have students and yourself focus on the writing process. It's already inherently a Gen AI use evaluator. So if you want to make sure students are using generative AI in a way that you think is useful, then this will help you to assess whether they are. If you want to see if you can make sure that they don't ever use it, then this isn't a tester, but it allows you to see how they're writing. So for instance, here is a student that starts off in the upper left-hand corner, writing their own text. I'll actually zoom in a little bit. Then they went back and rewrote some more. That little red area means they deleted some and then rewrote some more. These green circles indicate a copy and paste event. So they pasted in, they pasted in, they pasted in, then they wrote some on stuff on their own. They deleted a big chunk. That's the red circle. Copied and pasted, copied and pasted, copied and pasted, deleted a chunk, copied and pasted, wrote the conclusion by hand. And then these little specks here that you can see along the way, that means they did a little bit of typo editing at the very end because they went back to word one up at the top, and then they kind of copy edited a little bit right before they turned it into the very end. As opposed to this student here, this student wrote, rewrote, deleted a chunk, rewrote all of that, went back and did some revisions, wrote some more. Looks like maybe this professor required a draft to be turned in at this point. And when the student was given the feedback on the draft, went back to the beginning of the assignment and started revising it based on feedback comments. So they rewrote this part, they rewrote this part, they edited this whole area. They wrote some more, they edited everything, they wrote some more, they edited everything, and then they finally did their conclusion, revised a little bit, and turned in their paper. So with this mapping here, which is not, we don't do keystroke capture, this is just, we do 30-second snapshots. So it's not a privacy violation. 30-second snapshots, you can look as students wrote and revised along that process in order to have conversations about your process of what you want them to think about as writing, as opposed to just saying, did you write a good paper by the end? And allows you to focus on the things that many faculty want to focus more on. So that is that. I'm going to kind of brush over a couple other that because I talked about it more in detail earlier. All of these things are interconnected, which is why I kind of started off with the libraries, because the Forge stuff can be used in Adapt. Adapt stuff can be used in the libraries. You can embed Adapt homework into your library text, into your textbook. You can have H5P embedded in your textbook, or you can have H5P in your Adapt homework assignment. So you could do all sorts of different ways to do this. As you saw, the Jupyter Notebook can also be embedded in your textbook. We have other interactives that you have, PhET simulations from physics and engineering. We do have 3-dimensional plotting capacity you can put into your textbooks. GeoGebra, which is like a more complicated math drawing system, interactive structure viewers, protein structure viewers, all those things could exist in our textbook as well. And those platforms are all hosted by us. Obviously, the FET ones are not. Those are, if you're familiar with them, they're from the FET simulation area. And tons of support, including free office hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I always forget to update that slide. Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 a.m. at noon Eastern. You just go to zoom.libretext.org. First come, first serve, perfectly free. We'll help you with everything from getting started with your username to the very, very more complicated things. So with that, I wanted to kind of close out and give some time for questions. And I don't know, Ian, if